Right, so welcome everyone to the class on Power Maps and Power Pivot. The first thing that I want to share is that you do not need to practice right away here in the class. I've shared the data files in case you want to practice later, and it is perfectly fine for you to attend and actually see how things work in Power Maps and Power Pivot, and then you can practice later, right? So that's perfectly fine. I understand that some of you have, Excel 2007 or 2010, and you're actually trying to get a version of 2013, right? So it's perfectly fine that while you actually get that version, that you can watch carefully today's class and then practice and send me your output later, right? So the only thing is you can practice and send it later. You will be able to watch the video, mail it to me, and I will check your output at a later point in time. Now, for those of you that do have Excel 2013 and you've had a chance to install Power Maps and Power Pivot, you can feel free to practice along, right? You'll be able to practice some of it, and the rest of it you could always practice later. Okay? So before I move ahead, a quick recap of what we did in the last class, right? So we learned about the importance of inserting tables. And tables are really important in Excel, and we learned a lot of things. I mean, how we can actually help Excel understand where our data starts, where our data ends. And once we help understand that, right, Excel helps us, work more efficiently on our data. We learned that good data is tabular, data that grows vertically, and it has a couple of rules around it, one data in one cell, and maintaining things in a tabular format can be really advantageous, right? So those are some of the things that we had actually learned yesterday. Now let me move on to the next slide. We also learned some really useful features in terms of autofill and flash fill, right? So these are some of the features in 2013 that can be very, very useful if you're in the analytics industry, okay? And now we also learned that a lot of the actions that we perform in Excel can be actually very, very inefficient. So I've got this word coming up very shortly, and let's focus on this, right? A lot of the times the way we work in Excel can be very inefficient. So we learned about working efficiently, and trust you me, even now, 70% of analytics professionals end up spending a lot of time on Excel, right? And we learned that dragging and double clicking and copy pasting formulas is not the right way to do it, and that we should insert tables into Excel. We talked about some of the spreadsheet horror stories, the errors that have happened globally due to Excel mistakes, and how to avoid those by using features that I'll just talk about. And here's one case that I want you to think about is $400,000 worth of interest lost, but really millions of dollars are lost due to these kind of errors. So we learned about error checking and how we need to actually make sure we check an Excel sheet for errors before we even start to work on it, right? And some of the practices that we learned to avoid were putting formulas in headers, merging the cells. We learned that it's good to keep one data per cell and add missing data such as credit and debit. And we also learned that there's no formatting to represent data like colors, right? Using colors inside an Excel sheet can actually be a way of actually hiding data, because colors is also data. And then we learned that we could actually consolidate multiple ranges of information really, really quickly and save a lot of time that we can then invest in our analytics, right? Okay, and we had finally also learned about surface charting. So this was the feature of Excel 2010 that actually helped us draw on the chart surface itself instead of drawing a chart separately and having the data separately. And this made it really easy for us to implement visualization, and conditional formatting is one very useful surface chart that we learned, and here it is below. And we also learned about spark lines, which is very useful when you have multiple y-axes in one data, or variables have very different y-axes, right? Okay, so we just want to summarize some of what we learned. And now coming up today, is actually the MSBI add-ins in Excel, and we're going to focus on a couple of add-ins that are really important. So Satish, I'll connect with you. We'll have a catch-up class for you separately, Satish. Let me just unmute Satish here. And just a second here. Yes, Satish. So Satish will have a separate catch-up class with you during the weekdays where I'll take you through all of this. All right. And so all we are welcoming Satish to the batch as well from yesterday. He's joined us up yesterday in the first class on statistics and analytics. So now we're going to talk about some of the add-ins that are available in Excel, and Microsoft has made add-ins from the Microsoft BI suite of products available in Excel. And the ones that specifically we're going to talk about today are Power Pivot, and we're also going to talk about Power Maps that you see over here, right? So these are really useful, and we're going to learn to use these today and watch the demo on how we can use Power Pivot and Power Maps to our advantage. All right. So we're going to move ahead now. And Power Pivot, right? Before we talk about some of these things, Power Pivot and Power Maps, Power Pivot is basically allows you to create a database inside Excel. It allows you to store large volume of data efficiently in Excel in a tabular format. And trust you me, even 97 million rows of data can work, very, very comfortably in a 64-bit version of Excel 2013. So just for those of you that are not aware of this, there's actually a couple of versions out there that you can use, right? So you have a 32-bit version of Excel, and you also have a 64-bit version of Excel, right? So 2013 onwards, if your computer is reasonably good in its RAM and its hard disk, and I mean maybe 4 GB of RAM or 2 GB of RAM, preferably 4 GB or upwards, you should prefer the 64-bit version of Excel because it can easily handle 97 million rows of data using the Excel Power Pivot, right? And you get very good speed. It does not hang, and it's a really, really useful version that you can use. Okay. All right. So I've got a quick question here. What you see here is on the left-hand side is some of the trainings that have been conducted and the number of participants that actually attended those trainings. On the right-hand side, what you see is a visualization of this data, and I've got some dots there that represent the places where the trainings were conducted, and I've got the radius of the dot sort of signifies how many trainings got conducted at that location. So if you look at it over here, probably Gurgaon, this is probably Shanghai, this here is probably Manila in the Philippines, right? Let me see if I can choose a slightly different pen color to make this even more clearer. All right, here you go. So this is Gurgaon, this is Shanghai, this is Manila, and then over here we've got a few cities, towards the south of India, right? Now, my question to you is, what is the benefit of actually showing data in this manner, which is visually, right? As opposed to, why not have the data like this here in the table? So if I were to say that, option 1 is that I have data in a table like so, and option 2 is that I actually visualize this data, right? What benefits do you see out of visualizing this data? So can you put it in the chat box, please? I'd love to see a lot of responses from everyone. Can you tell me what are the benefits of representing data visually like you see in number 2? A lot of guesses is good, right? Let me go to the chat box and see what I have. Okay, so Poonam says quick analysis. Hari says you can identify clusters, right? Absolutely. Okay. Okay, and everybody is able to see the screen, right? I just want to make sure that everyone is able to see my screen. You should see a table and you should see the earth, right? Okay, so yeah, Subhabrata is able to see it. So Manmeet, probably a slightly slow connection at your end. You might want to just wait for a little bit and it should show up, and might want to check the speed of the internet connection once and see that it's going fine for you, right? Let me just see if I can unmute Manmeet. Hi, Manmeet. Everyone can seem to see the screen, Manmeet. How about you? Manmeet, I've got you unmuted. If you can speak up or chat, maybe. Okay. Okay. So Manmeet, I would recommend, right, that you can try two things, right? One is that you can log off and then log on, right? That could be one. Or you could wait, till you are able to see the screen. Okay, because I just checked, I think everyone is able to see it. Okay, so Manmeet is able to see it now. So it could be an internet connection issue though, Manmeet. You might want to just check the speed of the internet. So some of you, rightly pointed out that it helps in quick analysis, right? So one response I got is that when you show data visually, it helps you respond, analyze this, a little faster. The other response that I got is that it helps you see clusters. Now this is really interesting, right? So what is it that you do not see in this table over here that you do see in the visualization, right? Now, for some of us that actually belong to India, it's kind of intuitive for us to understand that Bangalore, Cochin, and Chennai are a cluster. But for those of us that don't belong to India, the fact that these three cities are a cluster are actually additional information, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that the purpose of visualization is not just to make things look more beautiful. It is not to make your data look more beautiful. The purpose of visualization is that it gives you additional information, which in this case, one additional information that I can talk about is that there's a cluster. Clearly, a lot of trainings are happening in the south of India. So that's one additional information that you can clearly see over here. The second piece of additional information is the fact that there are missing values. So if you look at Mongolia, where I'll put a number 2 right now, clearly we've not conducted any training in Mongolia. Or over here, if you look at Kazakhstan, right? No trainings over there in Kazakhstan. So the places where we have not conducted the trainings are visually apparent in this data. And it's especially more useful where you have one geo dimension, right? So a geo dimension could be a lot of things. To make this very simple for you, a geo dimension could be latitude, longitude. A geo dimension could be a city. A geo dimension could be a district, a pin code. Wherever you have geo dimensions, maps give you additional data like clusters, as well as they give you missing values like Mongolia, which actually are not available in a tabular format. And that's why we should actually prefer to use a map when we get additional information and makes it easy for us to analyze this really quickly. Okay, so we're going to go deeper into this in our next class. But in the battle of whether one should prefer tabular data only or geographical data only, right? I would say that you definitely want to prefer both tabular and geographical for different reasons. There are some users who actually like tabular data, which is perfectly fine. But for the vast majority of others, it's also great that they're able to visualize that data in a geography, right, on the map. All right, so I'm going to move ahead now. So what is Power Maps? Well, just a little bit of theory here for everybody. So Power Maps is a part of the Power BI suite. So it's actually a separate Microsoft BI tool, right? But they have made Power Maps available in Excel. Okay, so that's where the advantage is that we can install this in Excel 2013. Professional edition. So for those of you that will actually go and get a version of Excel to practice everything that you see in this class, the one that you want to target is the Excel 2013 Professional edition, right? So let me just put that there on the board. Excel 2013 Pro edition. So Pro stands for Professional Edition. So this is the one that you actually want to get your hands on, and this will help you to practice everything that you see here in your class today. Okay? Right. So what is Power Maps? Okay, so if you look at it, Power Maps is basically a 3D visualization tool that makes it very immersive for you to get inside your data and actually look at data in a way that traditional tables and charts would never have actually allowed you to look at it. Basically allows you to explore your data visually. It's actually a visual analytics tool, but I don't want to confuse people right now because we have an entire class on visual analytics coming up in the future. So it's a visual analytics tool, and it even allows you to create some tours that you can share with other people. And Power Maps, basically the way it looks at those cities that you talk about and converts them to a map is that it calls upon the Bing server. So Microsoft has a Bing server. It has a Bing search engine. Some of you may be aware of the Bing search engine. It also has a Bing server that Power Maps calls upon. And when you write a name like Delhi, or when you write a name, for example, like Hartford, right? Let me choose a slightly different pen color here so it's a little more apparent to everybody. Okay, so when you write Delhi or when you write Hartford in an Excel sheet, that needs to be converted to latitude and longitude. And Power Maps does that by calling upon the Bing server and getting the coordinates and then plots them or renders them on the screen. Right, so it can actually, render a lot of data is what we're trying to say here. It can plot even 1,000,000 rows of data and help you discover insights and share the stories not just with visuals, but it also allows you to use the audio as well. Okay. So let's just see, I have a quick comment here. Right, so temporal data is about time. So whenever data has time in it, right, as a date, as in you have, for example, either months or you have, a date and time. Sometimes you get data with date and time, or you get a data with year. So any data that has those attributes, right, any variables that have those attributes are known as temporal data. Okay. So we will actually have temporal data shared today, and we will plot it using the 3D Power Map. So Power Map is capable of a lot of things that we will learn shortly today. So where do you actually get your Power Maps? Well, when you get your hand on Excel 2013, right? At that point in time in Excel 2013, if you go to the Insert tab, you will be able to view the Power Map over here, right? And it's in the Insert tab. So first you click on Insert in Excel 2013, and then you go all the way to the right till you reach the Power Maps, and you click on Power Maps to launch the Power Maps. If you have Excel 2013 but you don't have Power Maps, you can actually download it from this particular link over here. It's there on the Learner Central page, which is kind of really important. I think everything is there on the Learner Central page. So let me just go back and escape a little bit here and see if I can copy this particular link and share it across with people. So not right now, but whenever you want to install it later, please do feel free to get your hands on Excel 2013 Professional Edition and click on this particular link here, right? So when you click on this link, it should take you to a page where you'll be able to download Power Maps, right? All right, and while this opens up, there you go. So it takes you to this particular page where you can actually download the Power Map preview. You can do it after the class. You don't have to do it right now, and then you can practice everything that you see here in the class, right? Okay. Yes, so Swami CH has a quick question. Right, great question. So he's got 2016 Pro version. So if you have Excel 2016, Swami, or anybody else who has 2016, it will already have, the options for Power Pivot and Power Map in there. Okay. So Power Map in Excel 2016 looks a little different from Power Maps in Excel 2016, but it's not very different. Actually, pretty much the same concept, just a few buttons here and there that look a little different. So definitely if you have 2016, you'll be able to practice everything that you see today or after the class, right? Okay, so let me get back to the presentation mode here. I think we've got one more question, so let me quickly go and just have a look at that question. Okay, Swami says, okay, thanks. It's perfectly fine. All right, so by the end of today, we'll also learn to create some dashboards, right? And dashboards like the one that you see here today. And the interesting question is that, Satish has asked a really good question, right? And let me just see if I can unmute Satish for a quick second. Right? He's got a really cool question, and I'm going to answer this here. So Satish, you could speak up. The question is Power Maps as powerful as Tableau, right? Okay, so some noise in the background. All right, so I would say that Power Maps is actually more powerful than Tableau for 3D data. So this is where Power Maps really beats the entire market. Is if you have 3D data, then there's no better place to render, three-dimensional data than Power Maps, right? And we'll do that today, right? And we'll look at Power Maps. It actually creates a tour. So tour also has audio, so you can record your audio commentary, and you can actually convert it into a total commentary video, right? And you can even actually convert it to a video in HD format and share it with anyone out there, including you can share it on a blog, you can share it on Facebook, right? So Power Maps has that amazing capability to look at that. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Satish, right? And the reason why we're doing Power Maps is precisely that, right, for its capabilities. And then we'll create a dashboard like this today, right? It looks like a very simple dashboard, but there's a catch, okay? The catch is that we're actually going to create this dashboard without any VLOOKUP. So let me just choose a certain pen color here and see if I can write something on the screen. So everyone here has done VLOOKUPs in the past, right? So it's probably one of the most popular functions in Excel. And what if you were able to sort of connect tables without VLOOKUP, right? And be able to then create these dashboards without using the VLOOKUP function and create relationships between tables. So we will learn to do that really, really well today. And for that, we're going to use the other tool, which is called Power Pivot. So let me see if I can just get back to my normal mode. Right. So this is again about visualization. So we clearly see that visualization is a good idea. And this is a heat map that we're going to generate today in Power Maps. And we're going to learn to generate heat maps inside Power Maps using the Chicago crime data. And then finally here, this is the answer to the question that Satish asked, right? So Power Maps has the capability of creating a 3D video like this. Okay, so for those of you that are not able to hear it, right? All right, so everybody says here great, and you might not have realized, but there's actually audio in this as well. So this has audio, so it has my voice, and I have recorded my voice, commentary on the data, and it has my commentary and my observations, and I've actually recorded them and created, an MP4 file, right? So this is possible in Excel, and we're going to learn to do this today. Okay. So I'm going to move ahead now from this slide here. Right, so again, it's possible to download all of these things, and I've shared the links on the page. And now, without any further delay, we're going to jump into our demo here today. So I hope everyone that has a version of 2016, 2013, you can practice, but for the rest of you, absolutely no worries. The recording is there 100%. I've got two data files that I've put into the webinar, so you should have handouts. The first handout is called Chicago Narcotics Data, and the second handout is called Management Dashboarding. So can everyone confirm that you have those two handouts in your handout section and download them from there, please? Those who are actually practicing, right? Just for those people. Okay. So yes, I think a lot of people have access to that data. It's perfectly fine. Great. So I'm going to kick off now, and here we go. Let's get Excel open out there. Okay. I think it's suggesting a couple of updates, so let me quickly close this particular option here. I don't actually require the updates right now. All right, here we go. So first things first, I want to show you, some of you may have already done this, but I want to show you how you might be able to, after installing Power Pivot and Power Maps, how might you be able to view them. So if you go to File in 2013, right on top, on the bottom left, on the top left corner, File, you click on File, and then you go down, all the way down to Options. So you click on Options. It will open up a window for you, right? The window will look like this. Okay. Now, once you go to add-ins, which is the second last option on the left hand side in the pane, you click on the add-ins and you click OK. It will open up all of the add-ins for you. So I'm actually opening that up right now as we speak. And you will be able to, in that section of add-ins, you will be able to enable Power Pivot and Power Maps and Power Query in case it has not already been enabled, right? So whenever you do get your Excel 2013, remember you can go to File, you can go to Options, and then you can click on Add-ins, right? And then in Add-ins, at the bottom of the screen, you will see Manage Excel Add-ins, so you can click on that and click on COM Add-ins and click Go, right? And then it will give you this view over here. And in this view, you will see that you have the check boxes that you can check and uncheck and make sure that you have your version of Power Map, Power Query, Power Pivot working. Okay. So this is how you actually install it. And let me see if I can get that screen off now. Great. And so once you've installed it, what you'll find is that you'll have Power Query right on top of your screen here. You'll have Power Pivot over here, and you will also have Power Maps. Power Maps will not show up separately over here. It will actually show up here in Insert. Okay, so let me go there and show you that right away, how it actually looks. Okay, so you go to Insert, and then over here you'll see Map. You click on the drop down, and then it says Launch Power Map, right? This is where you actually access the Power Map. Okay. Right. So Subrata, if you don't have Power Query, that can be because you have not yet installed it, or it can also be because you don't have the Pro edition. So there's a couple of different editions, right? So you have Home and Student edition, and that's one. So let me type it out there. And you also have the Professional edition. So that's the other one. And the Professional edition will definitely have, right, Power Query. And in case you don't have it, I can send you a link to enable it, right? And just mail me, drop me an email with your, query, and I'll see if I can send you a link to enable Power Query at your end as well. Okay, great. So we're going to open up the file now. We're going to open up the narcotics data file, right? So all of you can actually, those that have, can practice along, and I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, here we go. So I'm going to open up the Chicago Narcotics Data Commentary. And when you open up this file, you see two tabs. The first tab has the Chicago Narcotics Crime Consumption Data. Right, so it's a mid-sized data set. The whole thing is that it's actually a real data set, right? So this is the 2011 consumption of narcotics in Chicago, and these are the real data sets that you see here. You do not see the names of the people who consumed these narcotics and got arrested. Obviously, that data has been masked, but you do see a bunch of other things, right? So let's just view this data. It's got 38,450 arrests that were made on account of consumption of narcotics, and you see the data has some geospatial dimensions. It has latitude, it has longitude, right? And this got captured because the police officer who actually made the arrest, captured that on the spot on their cell phones. And then over here you've got the police case number. you have temporal data, which was alluded to earlier in the presentation. So you've got a date and you've got a timestamp, which is when the arrest was actually made. So for example, here it says 31st of December 2012, but it also mentions the time, which was 23:10 p.m. And then it's got the IUCR code, which is actually a code for the kind of crime that it was. So you can ignore that particular field. And it's got a subjective description of the kind of drug or narcotic that was found on the person. And finally, it's got a location of where that narcotic substance was found. Now, it's also got something called beat and ward. Okay, so this is not very pertinent to the visual analytics that we're going to do today, but I just want to share a little bit about what this beat and ward actually means, right? So can anyone guess what a ward is? Those of you that live in Bangalore might be aware of what is a ward. Can anyone guess? I'd love to have guesses around what is a ward. Some of you have seen elections in Bangalore, so you might actually be aware of what is a ward, right? Okay, so that's right. So Ambuj says it's a particular area. Hari says it's a classification of the area. Street name says Poonam, right? A block or an area says Manmeet. Absolutely. Right, thank you so much. So actually a ward is a particular, area. So it has a physical demarcation in a city, right? And then you have elections for that particular ward. So a counselor or someone gets actually, nominated for an election from that particular ward. Okay. So now this is the ward in the city. And this is the beat. So does anyone know what beat is? So with respect to police constables, do you know what the word beat signifies and what is the correlation between a beat and a police constable? So I'm just going to wait for some responses to come in. This is just some trivia, right? That is very useful to all of us, isn't it? But it has a significance here, right? When you look at the trivia. So I got a quick question, I think, from Nida, who wanted the download link. So I've sent that across to you, Nida. Okay, there you go. So beat constable or a specific booth says Manmeet for the police. A particular code says Poonam. Absolutely. So what happens is every constable gets a certain start point or an end point that they're supposed to monitor. So if this is their start point and their end point, they typically, keep going from one place to another. And along a particular path, it may not be a straight line path. It could also be, for example, there might be a few more points that have been decided in between. And then the constable has to go from point A to B to C to D and then come back along the same path, right? And this is the beat that they have to keep patrolling. And therefore, in some of the countries, a constable is actually called a beat constable. You might have heard the word beat constable earlier. So that is the whole connection between our data and that particular constable limit, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is actually we're going to select this particular data, two pieces of data. One is some hypothetical trainings that we've conducted in equiskill.com, and you see that over here, right? This is one data, and the other piece of data is Chicago narcotics crime data. So these are two data that we're going to actually use. One data set we will create a 3D visualization around, and the other data set we will create a 2D heat map visualization around. So let's go first with the 2D visualization. So I'll say a control A 2 times, and I'm going to select my data, and this will select the entire table that I have here today, right? And I'm going to go into insert, and I'm going to actually launch a power map. Now this can take a little bit of time. So let's just wait here while Excel launches the power map for us right here. As you can see, it's loading the data model. So at the bottom of the screen, Excel screen, you will see it says Excel is loading the data model. So what Excel does is it looks at this data and tries to figure out what are the different variables that it can use. And I've actually conducted these classes in the past, so you can see the tools over here. So I'm going to close those tools there so that we create a fresh tool today. Okay, there we go. So this is how it will look for you. when you actually install 2013 and practice for the first time, this is what it'll look like. So what do you need to do? You need to go to the bottom and there's this button called New Tour and there's a plus sign there. So you click on that plus sign, and the moment you do that, Excel starts working. So it starts trying to create a brand new tour for you using this particular data. And a tour is basically a combination of visuals which can then later be converted into an entire movie, right? So for some of you who actually have 2013, you could feel free to try and practice along if you can, or you can follow me later, okay? So let's wait while Excel actually creates this tour and renders this data for us. This will just take a very short while, so just request your patience here. In the meanwhile, I just want to check quickly with Nida that Nida, you are able to receive the link that I just sent you? I think the last time I sent it, it was not a clickable link, so I just want to confirm. Let me just go over and talk to Nida for a quick second there. Okay, I think I've got a response. All right, so Nida got the link. All right, perfectly fine. So just give me a second. It seems to be taking a little longer than usual to upload this model here. Microsoft Excel is waiting for another application to complete an OLE action. Okay. Let me see if I can just close down some of my other applications. Please give me a second. Right, folks. So for some reason, it's having a little bit of a problem here rendering this data. So please give me a quick second while I actually see if I can restart Excel and then render this data. Apologies, just give me a quick second here. Thank you. All right, so can everyone now see my screen with power maps on it? Superb. So I think everybody can view it here. Okay, let me just see here. Right, so Sumit can also see it. Everybody can see it. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. All right, folks, so this is the Power Maps interface. So before I go anywhere else, I want to make you very comfortable with the entire interface here in Power Maps. So what do you see here? You see here the map labels section. So if you click on this, it will create the labels for India, the cities of the world, right? All of those labels will get created on the top, and then you see flat map here. If you click on flat map, it will go to a two-dimensional map the way we are used to seeing in our atlas. So instead of 3D, it will go to 2D, right? So you can actually use these features to your advantage. Over here, you can actually play a tour. So you can play a video inside Excel, and you can add different scenes to it, and you can actually create a video that you can export. Now this video can be exported and viewed by anyone. You can export it in a Facebook or WhatsApp kind of format, which is a small file size, or you can even export it in high definition, right? So believe it or not, you can actually create an HD video, a high definition video of your data right here in Excel. So all of these things are possible inside Power Maps, right? So just want to make everyone very comfortable with the interface. You'll also see here that you had two sheets or two tabs in your Excel sheet, right? So the first tab had a very simple cities, number of participants, and that was the second tab that you had in the Excel sheet. So I'll just put it as tab number 2. And you also had tab number 1, which was actually your Chicago narcotics data, right? So those are the two tabs that we had in our Excel sheet. So both of the tabs are here on the screen right now. So let me just see if I can. Yes, so you can add multiple layers of data. So within one particular set of data, if you want to analyze it by using different variables, you can make combinations of variables, and you can use multiple variables for each layer. So for example, if you have 10 variables, in the first layer you may analyze variable number 3, 5, and 7. In the second layer you could analyze 1, 2, and 4. Okay. All right, so I think someone gave me a message that my laptop battery is low. So thank you so much. Let me just very quickly see if I can make sure I have it on. All right, there we go. All right, so I think we should be okay, fine. Thank you so much for that particular message. So like I said, you have two data sets, and I'm going to go back to the screen here. And you saw the two data sets. One was the Chicago narcotics data, and the other was a hypothetical number of trainings that we've conducted in Equiscale in different cities across the world. So we'll conduct two different tours, right? And we'll analyze the 2D as well as the 3D data. So like you can see on my screen, I've got the original Excel sheet over here on the left, and then I've got the Power Maps window on the right. Now we're actually not going to work in Excel. We're going to work exclusively in Power Maps, right? So what's this over here? Let me just zoom in a little bit into planet Earth or zoom out. So plus and minus denote your zoom in and zoom out. And the idea is that you can visually explore your data. So this is all about visual analytics, right? And then over here you've got the angles. So you can increase or decrease the angle vertically or horizontally using these cursors over here and view your data. So it's a very interactive and immersive way to view the data as opposed to a tabular way to view the data. So what else can you do? Well, you can have a little fun. You can actually click on the globe and spin it like this with your mouse. So when you drag it, you can spin it. And like I said, right, it gives you an understanding that non-visuals would never have given you, right? So for example, if I were to look at the Earth like so, okay, I might be tempted to think that most of planet Earth is actually landmass. But then if you actually spin it a little bit more like so, then I might be tempted to think it's 50% landmass and 50% water, till you actually spin it like this and you realize, oh my God, the Pacific Ocean is so big, there's hardly any land. And if that is half of planet Earth, and then the rest of planet Earth has the Atlantic Ocean over here, and then the Indian Ocean over here, then actually land mass is negligible, right? So this is what visual analytics does for you, right? The other thing that it also does is that if you were to spin it the other way around like this, you may realize that, oh my God, Antarctica is actually almost as big as South America, right? If you were to, for example, spin it over here, right? There you go. So you begin to realize that Antarctica is as big as South America, and if not South America, you do realize that it is in fact bigger than Australia, right? So let me just pin it here. And now you see that it's actually bigger than Australia for sure, right? And you can see this visually that if I had to rank these, this would probably be number one and this would be number two in the landmass. So these are things that visuals can actually make very apparent and really easy to understand, as opposed to using tables or trying to put the square feet area in numbers of Australia and Antarctica. But we want to do more now, right? So the first thing that you've got to help Power Maps understand is at the geography or the map level, what do you want it to call the Bing server and get what kind of data? So over here at the bottom, you see the geography and the map level, and it says check or drag fields from above, right? This is where you've got to drag and drop the geographical dimensions, the geo dimensions, or what some people also call geodimensional variables in your data. But I would just keep it very simple for you. I would just say the geographical fields in your data. So what are the geographical fields? Well, we just talked about them. It could be pin codes, it could be the name of the city, it could be the name of the country, it could also be the latitude and the longitude. So let me actually explore my data now and see what I can look at that is geographical. So right now I will not go with the trainings that I've conducted at Equiskill. I'll actually go with the Chicago narcotics crime data, right? So I'm going to erase all the drawings and just see if I can scroll up and down this data and try to understand what is geographical here, right? So the moment I scroll up and down, I find that there are certain things that are geographical, like the beat and the ward, but the whole problem is that the Bing server will not be able to understand beat and ward. But there are latitudes and longitudes that definitely the Bing server can understand. So I could do a couple of things. I could click on latitude and longitude and drag and drop it over here like this. So I've actually dragged the latitude, and then it gives me an error. It says the field list error, the latitude geography type has been selected, the longitude must also be selected. Right, so unless you select both latitude and longitude, you don't have a location on the planet. Right, so if you were to only drag the latitude, then you'd probably have an entire line across the planet that you could actually plot. So let me just erase this drawing and let me zoom out for a quick second. Okay, there you go. So if I were to look at only a particular latitude, then what I would end up with is an entire line across the globe like so. Unless I combine that with a longitude, which for example is like this, then I reach a point that can be rendered on the map, right? So that's the error that I just got. But you'll notice something. The moment I drag the latitude and the longitude over here at the bottom of the screen, Excel automatically zoomed in on a particular part of the globe. So it zoomed in over here. And you know what this is? This is nothing but Chicago. So the entire data in that Excel tab that we saw is actually data only of the city of Chicago, right? So Power Maps figured that out, and it understood that we don't need the whole globe, or we don't need 3D for this, or we could have 3D, but we can actually zoom in on this particular latitude and longitude directly, and it took us over here, right, to this part of the screen. So that's perfectly fine. We can always zoom out if we so like by using the minus button here. And I'm clicking on the minus button and you can zoom out. But for the time being, since we're actually analyzing data only to do with Chicago, we're going to zoom back in. Now, what are the advantages of the other 4 buttons that you saw here, right? These arrow keys. So let's actually look at that. So I'm going to zoom in on the Chicago data. Right now, I'm looking at this data pretty much from the top, right? And I can actually, incline the planet Earth like this, and I can look at this data horizontally as well, like this, right? So I can approach this data like this as well. but right now it's not rendering this data in a meaningful way for me so that I can analyze this data. So let me see how else I could actually analyze this data. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, now that I've specified latitude and longitude, and I'm going to click over here. This is where I've specified latitude and longitude by either checking these boxes or dragging and dropping them over here in the geography and map level. Then I have to click on the next button over here. Now this might be a little different in 2016, so don't worry about that. You'll get a hang of it when you practice. Now I click the next button. The moment I click the next button, it actually gives me, some options, right? It says you can draw different kind of charts. So whether the chart's visible over here, right? This is a bar graph. These are the charts. This is a bubble graph over here, and this is a heat map over here, and this is a parallelepiped, right? Now for this data, what I'm first going to do is I also need to specify the height. So if I use a bar graph, I can actually specify the height by dragging and dropping the field from over here, which is a number of cases of crime that have occurred, and then dropping it over here to the height section. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll actually drop the number of cases, drag it, and I'm going to come and drop it over here in the empty box called height, right? Now the moment I do that, Excel processes this data for me right here on your screen. Okay, there you go. So you now see that Excel has actually drawn bar graphs where the maximum crime has occurred. So this is an interactive process of analyzing this data. I'm going to make it, if you make it vertical like this, you will not be able to make any sense out of the graph. So you might want to make it at an inclined angle like this, right? Now you can clearly see the different areas in Chicago where crime consumption have happened and where it was the highest, where it was the lowest. And you clearly see a Manhattan. So if anyone asks you to draw a Manhattan, right? I'm going to type this out probably in the chat box as well. There we go. I'm sure those of you that are in analytics have actually drawn a Manhattan, right? So this is basically a Manhattan. It signifies nothing, but it's like a city, right, with a lot of skyscrapers or towers. And if anyone asks you to make a Manhattan of your data, this is the Manhattan of your data. Now, if you zoom in a little bit more, you can see all of the areas where crime has occurred. And there are labels as well. So for example, over here, if I click on this particular bar, I see that there are 224 cases that have happened right here at latitude and longitude, 224 arrests. And then over here, 124 arrests. Now, what stands out, right, if you look at this region compared to the other region, right, what stands out? Isn't this completely separate from the rest of the crime area, right? Did anyone notice that? Does it stand out that this particular bar number 1 here, is totally different from area number 2? And it's an isolated consumption of narcotics, right? Does everyone see that? Does everyone see that number 1 is totally separate from number 2 and they are separated by a significant distance, right? Let me go back to the chat box, right? Okay. Right, so everyone sees that, right? Now our data in a tabular format may never have told us that there's an geographical outlier of the consumption, right? And this is the geographical outlier that you see right here. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is the geographical outlier. And this is the rest of the cluster. There's a big cluster over here clearly, and then there's another cluster that seems to be over here, and some areas that are on the periphery over here where consumption of narcotics is happening. So let me erase all of these drawings, okay? And let me go back to my view here. Right, there you go. So this is one way of looking at your data, is in terms of a bar graph, and that you see over here. But there's another interesting way that you can actually look at your data. But before I go there, it's actually possible to view this data with time as well, okay? I have not added time currently to this equation, but now when you go down on the screen, you'll notice right at the bottom of the screen is also time over here, right? So there's height, there's category, there's also time. Now time is possible for me to include in this analysis because I have the date and time of the arrests. So let me do something here, right? Let me take the time and drag and drop it on the field at the bottom of the screen. So you have date over here. Date actually includes time, and I'm going to click it, drag it, and come and drop it on top of time. Right. So now, apparently nothing much has happened. The whole screen has gone blank. But if you look carefully, you'll notice that there's a play button that has appeared here. So I actually can play this data spread over time. Okay. So let's do that now. I'm actually going to press the play button and play this data spread over time. There you go. Now it shows you the consumption pattern and how over time which area consumed how much narcotics, right? But this was really fast. So I need to slow this down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the settings. So where are the settings? The settings are over here. This little button that you recognize, pretty similar to your mobile phone. So it's intuitive in that sense, right? So I'm going to click on the settings there, and I have some options here, right? I want to walk you through these options. The first option is I can make this data less opaque like this when it becomes totally invisible. Okay, a little bit like Mr. India, okay, or the Invisible Man, or I can make it more like over here, which is totally opaque. You cannot see through it, right? And I'd like to keep this somewhere around, let's say, 75% like this. The advantage of opacity is that you can see through the data to the map labels, okay? So how does that help me? I mean, how does opacity help me? So let me show you right here. On the top left corner, you see map labels, and I'm going to click on map labels now. The moment I click on map labels, all of the names of the localities will appear on the screen. So now the whole advantage of opacity is that if I zoom in on a particular locality, let's say, for example, let's just increase the angle here, and let's zoom in on a particular locality like this outlier over here, right? You can actually watch the map labels, so you can watch the names right there below the bar graphs, right? So if I zoom in here a little bit, and now I reduce the opacity like this, I can quickly see on the screen that this area is known as Brainerd Avenue, right? So now I can increase the opacity again and get to my bar graph, and I know what area this is and where the crime was happening, right? So that's the whole advantage of opacity, is that you can combine it with your map labels and actually understand, what is the area underlying this particular consumption pattern. The other thing is you might need to adjust the height of your graphs so that it makes sense for you, and that depends all on the y-axis of the variable. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually remove the map labels for the time being because it's a little distracting. And I've clicked on map labels again, and it has removed the map labels. Now I'll increase the height of the towers, right? So probably I'll increase the height of the towers till, let's say, 190%, or maybe a little less than that. Just a second here. There you go, 180%. So what this does is it makes some of these stars individually visible to my naked eye, right? I can understand this with my naked eye without any magnifying glasses. So I've increased the height. And then you have the option of increasing the thickness, but if you make it too much like this, then you might not get any meaningful, output from that. So you'll probably want to keep it somewhere in between. I would go with probably 77% or at best 100%. Okay, 100% is probably fine. Okay. Right, and you've got some color options here, so you can obviously, choose your colors if you actually prefer a color like this. Suppose you say it's crime data, so probably I'm going to prefer a color like this, right? So you can actually make your color options as well. Now, you go to the scene options. So inside the settings, you see the scene options. You click on the scene options like this, right? So you see layer options, you also see the scene options. Inside the scene options, I'm going to increase the transition duration to, let's say, 6 seconds. You can make it even more than 6 seconds. So probably let's see if we can take it up to 10 seconds, right? So that we can watch how crime unfolded in the year 2011 in Chicago, right? And which localities were right on the top of the charts and which localities were not on top of the charts. Okay. So there are some effects here. If you look at this section over here, there are some effects. Let me see if I can show you that section. Over here, you've got effects. It says no effect. Okay. So if I go in there right now, I can actually select an effect like rotate the globe. But since I'm not looking at the data on a three-dimensional fashion, I think it's perfectly fine to not have a rotate the globe effect. We'll have that in the next data set that we use. Okay. So I'm actually going to press the play button now. There you go. So now this is over 10 seconds. I see how crime progressed and which areas were the first, to have the crime, and which areas were later, the areas where the arrest happened. Okay, and you can clearly see that this particular area over here remains the top of the crime charts, right? And this area over here. So now we can actually zoom in there and figure out what is this area, right? So this is the power of Excel Power Maps, and this is where Tableau actually does not do as good a job of doing this. And I can actually go back to my layer options and reduce the opacity like this, and probably add my map labels like this, and look at the name of this particular area where the maximum crime is happening. Okay, so this is very close to Douglas Boulevard where the maximum crime is happening, right? This was the data bar. Let me just click on our data bar here and let me zoom in further. This is right at the base of the data bar, close to 290 is where the maximum crime is happening, right? Okay, I'm going to remove the map labels. I'm going to zoom out. And now that I don't need the map labels, I'm just going to increase the opacity so I can see my data bars and my crime bars again. Take it back to, let's say, around 80%. Okay. So this gives me a pretty good view of the entire crime. So I see a couple of patterns here, right? If you look at it, a lot of the crime seems to be happening next to the water bodies, right? So that's pretty apparent here. So I could have a couple of hypotheses. I mean, one could be that the crime is actually happening because drugs are being supplied to the water body over here. That could be one hypothesis. Or maybe this is a place where people actually, convene in the evenings or a particular time of day, and I'd have to look in that. And maybe that's why the drug is happening, consumption is happening here. Now, clearly over here is sort of what looks like the epicenter of the drug consumption, as well as another satellite area over here. So if I were to look at the epicenter, I'd probably say that this here is actually the epicenter. And then I would look at the outlier. I would look at the satellite, and I'd say this is the satellite area. And depending on how you view the data, it's almost contiguous, right, from the epicenter of the crime consumption to the satellite area. And then there's also an outlier over here, which doesn't have an explanation right now, that why is this a sole outlier of data consumption so high in this area, which is separated significantly from the other areas, including the epicenter as well as the satellite consumption area. So these are some of the things that I've so far discovered, and I'm going to zoom out. Now I'm going to move to a slightly different view of this data, right? One of the very useful ways to look at any data, whether it's, it doesn't matter whether it's crime over 1 year or whether it's sales data over 1 year, is a heat map, right? So how do you actually use a heat map? So I'm going to click over here back on this button and come back to our original view. This is the button that I clicked on, the layer button, and I've come back to the original view. This will be really easy for you to do when you practice this, right? So now what I'm going to do is, instead of looking at a bar graph, so this is great, this tool is great, and I can actually create a video out of this tool as well, but I'm actually going to now look at a very different view. The second view I'm going to look at is a heat map, which is over here. Okay, so I'm going to click on this heat map and look at the consumption over a period of time using a heat map. Now what a heat map does is that it's very simple. It uses three colors. It basically looks at red wherever there's a lot of data or a variable is occurring a lot of times, and then it has green, it has yellow as well, right? And it uses those three stoplight chart colors, red, green, and yellow, to help you understand your data. Now, human beings typically understand data really well if it has less than 8 colors, okay? So I would say if the number of colors that you have in a particular chart is actually less than 8, human beings understand it really well. But a heat map is great because it has only, broadly speaking, 3 colors, right? So it's very easy for us to understand a heat map. So let's go ahead and generate a heat map now. Before that, you've also got a bubble graph. So I'll show you a bubble graph here. This doesn't seem to be very meaningful, but if you go to the settings and reduce the size of the bubbles like this, and then zoom in, this could be another way of looking at your data, could be using a bubble map. But this is not very meaningful. So let me go back to my layer options and click on heat map. Okay. Now I've clicked on heat map and it's trying to do something here. There you go. Now Excel has generated a heat map of the consumption of crime for this particular geospatial area that we're looking at here. Now this makes things much clearer, right? It's easy to see that this area is the actual, the area where the maximum crime or cases or arrests are actually happening. And then we talked about a satellite area. So this is the satellite area. We talked about the entire cluster here of consumption that's happening next to the river, and that you can see over here. It's actually a lake. It's the Lake Michigan, one of the largest water bodies that is not an ocean. And then you can see the outlier, which is over here, right? So this view seems to be far more meaningful compared to the previous view that we had. And let's explore this view a little better now, right? So what I'd like to understand is that if I were to play this as a video using the play button over here, temporal data, it has temporal meaning it has date and timestamp, would I discover something new? Okay. So red means that cumulatively maximum number of arrests were made here, and then probably over here, and then here, here, and finally over here, right? So let me go ahead and play this as a tour and see if I can get any meaningful information. Okay, so I go to the settings button on top, right, and click on the scene options. First, let me use the color scale. If I go like this, if I make it 500%, everything becomes red, so it's not very meaningful. But if I keep it where it was, probably around 100%, I think that's perfectly fine, right? Now, the radius of influence, again, if you increase it, it becomes not so meaningful right now. So I'm going to keep it where it is over here, right? This seems to be fine for me. I'll keep it at 117%. And now the opacity I don't need. Right now I'm not using the map labels. Let me click on the scene options, and it's 10 seconds and there's no 3D effect. So the start date, as you can see, is the 1st of January 2011 at 12:30 at night, and then end date is 31st of December 2011 at 10 p.m. Okay. And then you've got the speed as well, so you can increase or decrease the speed of the animation, right? And if you do that, you see that the duration of the scene automatically changes. Okay, so I'm going to probably keep it at 13 seconds or 15 seconds. Okay, here we go. So I've kept this at 15 seconds. Now let's watch what happens when I play this. Okay, there we go. Keep your eyes on the screen. This is our main consumption area, cumulatively red throughout, and gets deeper and deeper, which means the number of occurrences of this variable, case number, have continuously increased over time. Over here, you see this also gets deeper and deeper, right? But over here, you see a fluctuation. So this area actually fluctuates, and it actually goes red, and then it goes back to yellow, it goes back to red. So basically, there's a wavering consumption over here, over there, right? So let me see if I can reduce the duration of the video and observe that flickering effect a little closer. Okay, so I'm going to make the speed around 10 seconds, and I'm going to keep an eye on this particular outlier. Okay, the outlier in my data set, which is this spot here, right? Let's keep our eyes on that, and now let's watch what happens. There we go. Now you can see that it's flickering. Let's watch it closely. There you go. It becomes red, orange, red, orange. Does everyone see this spot flickering? Please let me know if you see the flickering. Just say yes if you can observe the flickering of this spot over here, right? I'm going to play it for you again. And see, it has a significance, and I'm going to come to the significance very shortly, right? There you go. You can see the reds there and the oranges. All right, so what we need to do is we need to understand why this is happening, right? It's great to now know that there's, something going on with that outlier there. So I'm going to I'm going to focus on this here. Just going to zoom in, and this is visual analytics, right? What we're doing here today. And I'm going to, just see if I can slow it down a little further, increase the radius, right? So let me go back to my layer options and see if I can improve my color scale a little bit, and then increase the radius of influence for this particular point over here. And now I'm just going to focus in on this point, zoom in, and try to understand what's going on. So let me now play it again. There we go. Now the flickering becomes really apparent, right? So this cumulative number of arrests in this area is actually relative to the other data set, it's going up and down, okay, relative to the other variables, other latitudes and longitudes. And you notice something funny over here, right? There's something next to this area which is a little different from the rest of the area, okay? So I'm going to take the help of map labels and investigate this a little further, and let me do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to go and add the map labels. So this area is called Bensenville, right? So you see it on your graph over here. Let me draw it for you. It's called Bensenville, okay? And it's very close to another area, and I'm circling it over here. It's written over here. Can you read this here? It says, what does this say? What is this? Can everyone read it? Can you type it out? This whole area, what is it? It's written over here inside the box, right? Inside the circle. Right, so Nida says Chicago O'Hare Airport, right? So I hope everybody was able to read that, okay? And I'm going to zoom in a little bit further now and actually show you right here. There you go. So now it should be really apparent. This is a Chicago O'Hare Airport. So basically, there's a, there you go. So Poonam also says that. Everybody can read that. So now if you see that consumption of drugs is going up, it's increasing, it's decreasing, it's increasing, it's decreasing over time, it's kind of fluctuating close to the airport. What do you think might be happening? Now let's take a guess. Okay, there's something happens at the airport, and after that there's a lot of consumption, and then for some time there's no consumption, and then something happens again and there's a lot of consumption, and then after some time there's no consumption. So there's an event that happens at the airport, something happens at the airport, because of which the consumption goes up and down. What do you think is happening? What happens at the airport every day? Let me show you the animation again. There you go. Right? All right, so there you go. So Nida says drugs are being supplied through the airport, flight timings and tourist arrivals, says Ambuj, right? So you guys got it, right? So there's a definite connection between the Chicago O'Hare Airport, the arrival of flights, the arrival of tourists, and the consumption of data and the number of arrests that happen. Clearly there's some kind of correlation there that we need to investigate further in our data. So visual analytics helps you, arrive at this so quickly compared to if you were to do the same thing without visuals. And this is why there is no substitute for visual analytics when it comes to two-dimensional or three-dimensional data that has geographical attributes. I would strongly recommend that you first analyze that data visually before you ever try to actually analyze it using, analytics, right? Okay. So I'm going to zoom out here, and I've got some interesting findings now over a period of time. I think we've understood. I'll see if I can make the radius of influence smaller. There we go. And reduce the color scale a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to make this 2D to simplify things like this. Now I'm actually going to create a video inside Excel. So suppose I want to, make it a short video, right? So I go to the scene options and I can make it maybe, let me see if I can make it 6 seconds, right? Okay. So I've made it a 6-second video, and now you can actually record your commentary. So if I were to do it on my computer right now, all of you can type recorder, okay, and you can use a sound recorder on your computer. I'm going to turn on my sound recorder right now. Okay. And then I'm going to actually record my commentary. So let me just record some of my observations right now. So as you can see, there's Oakland Park is the epicenter of the consumption. So over here, and then after that, the other area is Hyde Park, which is the satellite area of consumption. There are clusters near the water body, right? And then there's an outlier at Bensonville, which seems to be because it is correlated with the airport. So if those are my observations, I can very quickly record those, right? And I'm going to do that now in my sound recorder. Looking at the Chicago narcotics consumption data, we find the epicenter is at Oakland Park. There is a satellite consumption area at Hyde Park, and there is also consumption going on at Bensonville, which is close to the airport. Okay, so once I've recorded my file, I can actually save this as my commentary. Okay, and I can save this on my desktop. This is a Windows Media audio file that I'm just saving on the desktop now. So I've saved my audio file already on my desktop. Now I go to create video. So there's a button here on the top left that says create video. I click on it. It gives me some options. It says that I can either create a high definition display or one for computers or one for mobiles. So I'm going to select mobile, quick export. I'll click on soundtrack. And then I'll click browse here. Go to my desktop and select my commentary file, right? Now I've added my commentary that I just made on this data, and I'm going to apply it, and then I'm going to create the video. The name of a file, and I'll just say tour 31 because today is the 31st. Instead of the C drive, I'll see if I can save it on the desktop. There you go. Now Excel is actually publishing a video right here. So in fact, I shouldn't say Excel, it's Power Maps. And what Power Maps is doing is it is publishing and creating this video right here. Okay. So this can take a few minutes, but I think I have a few things saved in my C drive as well. Let me see if I can pull up the C drive. So you will see a progress bar. Here's the progress bar. So it's going to combine the visual of the heat map. It's going to combine my audio commentary, and then it's going to create a video right now, right? Sorry about that. Okay, so it says completed, and now I click on open. And it should open it up right here in the Windows Media Player. There you go. I'm going to play it again. There you go. And so what I'm also going to do is see if I can actually choose this file right from my desktop and share it with all the participants that we just created right now. So it's 231. It's an MP4 file. Okay, so I've added this to the handouts. Can everyone please download tour31.mp4 and play it on their computers, please? Has everyone received the file tour31? Okay, so can everyone please play it at your end and see if you can also hear it on audio? With audio, please play it with audio so you'll be able to hear my voice as well. Oh, okay, Ambuj has played it. So Ambuj, did it work well? What did you use? The media player at your end? Let me see if I can unmute and speak. Yeah, Ambuj, I've unmuted you. You use the media
Yeah,
player at your end?
no, I'm used Firefox and with QuickTime.
Right, so you're able to hear the commentary as
Yes,
well? All
yes.
right. So what do you think about these, capabilities of Excel? Did you ever believe that all of this could have happened in Excel?
Excel has done wonderfully well.
Right? So it's more Power Maps than Excel, but definitely, I mean, we can explore our data visually, right? So thanks a lot, Ambuj, for your comment. And how about everybody else? So let me also hear from, let's say, Poonam. Hey, Poonam, I've unmuted you. You were able to play it using a media player, or was it some other player that you used? Okay, so I think there's a mic issue there. Okay, Poonam got media player. So what do you guys think about this? Let me unmute Satish here. So Satish, you were asking the question, right? Excel versus Tableau. So do you now see the advantage of rendering data in Power Maps? I've got you unmuted, Satish. Okay, okay, you've actually chatted there. Perfectly fine. So let me see if I can unmute a few other people. Swami, what's your reaction here? I've got you
Uh,
unmuted, Swami.
yeah, it's great actually. Yeah, we can get the more information by looking at the visuals. Yeah,
Right,
it's great really.
absolutely. Absolutely. And let me unmute Dimple there. So Dimple, you're saying you actually saw this on the news, is it?
Yes, I did.
Right, right. I mean, so if you look at it, right, a lot of things we're learning here today, for example, sparklines is something that you see every day on CNBC if you look at the and so Poonam says, it's amazing. Never thought you could create a video in Excel. And that's why I tell people you should move to Excel 2013, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. Okay, superb, superb. So just give me a minute here while I pull up the next data set, and you can all play the video at your end. I'll be back in just 1 minute. So I have a comment here. Right. So you need some geographical data for sure, Satish. So you might be able to do it with the name of a city. You could do it with latitude, longitude. But Power Maps makes a lot of sense if you have some geographical data. So even if you look at sales in Karnataka for Airtel, right, and you have sales in Hampi, you have sales in Shimoga, Tumkur, Bangalore, Mysore, as long as you have one geo dimension or one variable that is a geodimension variable, it makes a lot of sense to use, Power Maps. And if you don't have any geodimension, but yet you want to visualize your data, then it makes sense to use Tableau. Okay. So I hope that helps us understand where, it makes a lot of sense. Now, if you were to have one geo dimension, right, Tableau also renders the data, but Tableau does not have 3D capability, number one. Tableau does not have the capability to create tours, videos, or add your audio commentary. So a lot of the times you create powerful presentations for your clients, right? And if you were to create those using Power Maps, it has such a strong impact, right, on the client, or if you were to do it for your all hands meetings as well, right? So it is far more impactful if you look at sales data, in a geography, right? So let me also take reactions from Akash. So Akash, how do you find Power Maps? I've got you unmuted here. Okay, so I think there's a small audio issue there at Akash's end, right? So Akash, you could respond over chat box as well. Okay, so while we hear back now, let's look at the second, data that we had. Okay, so I'll go back to the layer options over here, and what I'll do is see if I can actually, well, uncheck these options here and see if I can look at something a little different. So I've actually unchecked all of this, and let me also see if I can move to the training that I had before, right? So I have number of participants and the cities where I've actually conducted those participants. Right, so Akash says the name suggests it's also a powerful tool. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so I'm actually going to see if I can, create a slightly different view now, a completely different view. So you can actually close this particular tool completely. The one that we have, you can close this particular sheet, and let's go to the second sheet, which is called EquiSkill. And on this tab, if I had to do a quick Control A and select my data, and of course, I immediately want to first insert a table using Control T, and then let's see if we can insert this into a power map, right? And I'll create a new tool now this time. Again, this will take a small amount of time, so thanks a lot for your patience while Power Maps actually fires up. And now Power Maps has fired up. So what you can see over here is something a little different, right? So you can see over here all of the cities where trainings have been conducted by EquiSkill, let's say hypothetically, okay? Okay, so someone says the screen is not changing. There we go. So you should be able to see the screen now, okay? Let me know if you can see the screen now, the 3D globe screen. Right, okay, great. Now this time what I'm doing is I'm going to use the first data set, which is the city number of participants, and I'm going to plot the number of cities where I've conducted trainings globally. So suppose I checkbox, first of all, I have to choose a geography or a map level. So it's perfectly fine. You'll notice here that Power Maps is making a recommendation that I choose city, right? So where do you see that? You see that over here. You see Power Maps is recommending that why don't you go ahead and choose city as the geography or the map level for this particular data, and it's suggesting that I click on the next button. So I'm actually going to do that. Let me erase all the drawings, okay, and I'm going to click next. Now after I click next, I have a couple of options. I can add participants to the height bar like I did before. So I'll drag and drop participants to the height bar. This time I don't have the date and time where the trainings were conducted, but clearly now I can actually see 3D visuals of where all the trainings have been conducted globally. In India, it becomes really easy for you to interpret this data, for example, right? You can see where all the trainings have happened in India, right? So this over here is actually Delhi when you click on it. This over here is Mumbai, and then we've got a cluster here, Mysore, let's see here, Cochin, we've got Bangalore, and we've got Chennai, but really trainings all over the globe. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to zoom out now. There you go. So you can see all of the different trainings, and then I could also create a 3D visualization out of this as well if I want. You can also view it as a bubble graph like this and probably reduce the size of the bubble graph, right? So I'm going to make the size a little smaller, maybe like this, okay, and reduce the opacity a little bit, right, so that I don't get a very dark color. Improve the thickness a little bit there, okay, and maybe take it to this much, okay. So now that I've got all of this, and I probably will choose a slightly different color, so let me see if I can choose maybe let's see here, a slightly different color like this, or maybe green. No, green's not making a lot of sense. Okay, I'll go with this color here. There you go. But then it's kind of, looking different with the ocean. So this one's a little garish. Just a second here. Right, so I think this will have to do for the time being, right? Okay. How about different cities with the same name, says Ambuj Mittal. Okay, so that's very interesting, right? So you know, if you look at it, right, there's a Hyderabad in Pakistan, and there's a Hyderabad in India as well, right? So if you were to write Hyderabad, what I've generally seen is that the Bing server kind of understands and chooses the India Hyderabad, but you can also, you know, it may also throw up a question. It may say that I don't understand this data, and then you may have to specify the latitude and the longitude for that particular city. So that's a great question there, and I'll actually plot it and show it, you know, probably in the next class. You know, plot the same city in different countries and show you there. I don't have it in the current data. Now, if you, for example, look at Tableau, right? When Tableau doesn't understand what city it is, it will actually show you an error, and you have to then resolve that particular error and help it understand, you know, which city or which location it is. Okay, so that's a great question over there. Thanks a lot, Ambuj. So I'll go to the scene options, and I'm going to make this slightly smaller, maybe just 5 seconds, right? And now I'm going to choose a transition effect. Oh, okay. So Ambuj is asking, you know, cities in the ocean. So that's perfectly fine. So these look like they're in the ocean, but they're actually on an island. So let's zoom in there and let's click on this one here. So this city over here is Malé. So this is Malé in Maldives. So let me just zoom in. There you go. Okay. So right now here, I'm just going to zoom out and I'm going to add map labels. Okay. Just going to click on map labels there. Okay, so it's just struggling to render that a little bit. So this is Malé in Maldives. And then if you click here on this one here, this is Port Louis, which is an island, right? And this one here is an island near Madagascar. This one is the island of Moroni. And then let's look at some of the islands right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? Lonely places to be. So this is an island called Palikir. And over here is another island. So you've got different islands right over there in the ocean. Okay, so Ambuj got it perfectly fine. And I think I've got one more comment. Let me just check that here. Oh, okay. RP just joined. Let me just welcome RP to the webinar. Hi, RP. Welcome to the webinar.
Hi Amit, hi everyone. How are you?
Hey, great,
Amit,
great.
please continue.
Yes, so we're running the 3D visualization. Everyone's welcoming you, RP, in the chat box there.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So I'm going to zoom out here, right? And now let's have a look at this particular visual. So what I've done is I've kept this scene at 3 seconds. Now maybe I'll just make it 5 seconds here, right? All right, and then I add the effect rotate the globe. Okay, so I drag down that effect and I select it, and probably the effect speed is also okay by me. And you can actually, you know, play a tour right here. And like I said, you can use a sound recorder, right? So if you just quickly use the recorder and add your comments, right, to your data, so that you've got a little stories here. So what sells these days is a story, right? So you've got to make sure that you add your commentary, and I'm going to do that right now. Just a second while I pull up my sound recorder. There you go. These are the trainings conducted by equiskill.com globally, right? So I've stopped the recording and I'm going to add this as A1 just to keep it really easy on the desktop. That's the Windows Media Player audio file. And then I click on create the video, right? And before that, you can actually play this and see how it looks, right? So over here, this is how it looks. It will actually rotate the globe for you and give you that rotating globe effect, okay? So then to that, you can actually create your video, and you can even choose high definition, but that will take a long time. So I'll just go with our normal option. I'll browse and select the soundtrack that we just created right now. There you go. And then we're going to just apply this and go ahead and create the video, right? So this is the second video. I'll just say V2. Keep it nice and easy. Save it on the desktop. And there you go. POMAPS is creating your 3D video along with rotation of the globe and the sound effect, which is the commentary that we just shared with all of you. and it doesn't take a huge amount of time. If you have the 64-bit version of Excel for 2013, 2016 with 4 GB or higher RAM, it doesn't take a lot of time. But if you've got like 2 GB RAM and an older computer, then it could take even 5 minutes, right? Okay, there you go. So I'm going to open this up now, and it's opened up Windows Media Player. And you can play the visualization. There you go. Okay, so these are just smaller samples, but you can create much bigger and longer depending on how long your commentary is. You can add your commentary and actually make it far longer, right, than just these brief videos that I'm sharing here. The whole idea is to make you very comfortable, and I'm sure that you'll create really exciting videos of your data. Okay, so can everyone download v2.mp4 and play it at your end? I've just shared it in the handouts. And once you're done, just say, played. You should be able to hear the commentary as well. So I'm going to wait for everyone to confirm that they've actually had a chance to play the video, download the video at their end. All right, so Swami's been able to do that, right? Okay, Subribrata, Poonam, everyone been able to play this. Hey, so folks, the whole idea, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can create your own commentaries of data and create videos that you can post on Facebook. You can share it across with people. You can upload it on YouTube, right? And you can share a YouTube link, right? And why am I sharing all of this with you, right? If you look at the internet, right, it's been moving in a different direction. What's been happening is we've been moving away from text, and then we moved to images sort of the decade before. But now if you look at it, everything is moving towards video, right? And there's this prediction in RP, you might have a little more data about it, but there's a prediction that the entire internet is going to move towards videos in the future. So if you were content with presenting your data or your analysis or your analytics just as 2D visuals, you might need to change your approach and start looking at videos to present your data. So I would encourage everyone to please create the video of Chicago narcotics and upload it on YouTube, right, and send me the link, right? So this is your assignment, and let me put it in the chat box, right? This is important. The assignment is that you can go ahead and create your video, okay, of Chicago. And there's a lot of analytics that you can do, right? So Chicago narcotics consumption. Don't restrict yourself to what I have done. There's a lot more, right? And do all of that, create your video, sort of add a commentary using your sound recording, right? So let me add that there. And then you can actually upload it on YouTube. You can create your own YouTube channel. I'm sure you have Gmail, so you can create YouTube and upload it there and send me the link, right? So this is the assignment. I have actually sent it across to all of you. Feel free to take time. There's no hurries about this, but the whole idea is I need to see everybody be able to, create visualizations of their data on Power Maps, okay? So that's number one. Now, is it okay if we take our little break, folks? Is everybody ready for a break? All right, so let me just see if I can get the comments. Okay. All right, so I think folks are ready for a break. So let's take 5 minutes starting now, and let's come back after 5 minutes. Is everyone back? Okay, we've got Nida and Ambuj back. How about everyone else? Is everyone back? Thanks, Poonam. Thanks, Satish, Jaspal, Sumit. Thank you. Okay, Arbind, Subabrata, everyone's here, I think. Hari, welcome. Okay, so folks, feel free to, let me know if the break is okay, 5 minutes, or if we need to have slightly longer break, right? Totally will depend on you for that guidance there. Okay, so we can have 5 or 10 minutes depending on how intense the topic is. For the time being, now what we're going to do is now close down Power Maps. So I'm actually going to see if I can close the Power Maps view. The moment I close it, I come back to the Excel sheet that was actually the underlying data for the Power Map. So I think we can even close that for the time being. Let me just see if I can close this. Don't need to save it. All right. Now the next piece that we're going to move to is Power Pivot, right? So it's over here, right on top of your screen. So all of those that have actually installed Power Pivot should be able to see it right there. Now the interesting thing about Power Pivot is that it works for Excel 2010 as well. Okay, so if you try, there's a version of Power Pivot out there that works for Excel 2010. It's in the MSDN website. But of course, if you have 2013 or if you have 2016, that's actually perfect because in the Pro editions, right, again, you need the professional edition, right, for Excel 2013 and the any edition, I think, of Excel 2016, it works right there. So there's a little bit of this jugglery that goes on in terms of which edition supports which tool, but you can check that on the MSDN website, Microsoft website. Let's go ahead and open up the file that I've shared across with everyone, and the name of file is the management dashboarding file. Okay, exercise 7 management dashboarding. So I'm going to open it up now. Right, so everyone should be able to see exercise 7 on my screen now. So a little bit of what it looks like is like this. So over here, when you look at this data, if I just go in a little bit and zoom in on this data a little bit here, you see certain products and they're being sold at some stores in cities that are in certain states, and there's a certain sales revenue that we're getting out of those. So this is one table, and then on the other hand, you also have a little more data on the right hand side. So I'll show you that now. Okay, so over here we've got the store, you've got the area of the store, and whether it's a prime outlet or a non-prime outlet. So as it turns out, well, most of the outlets are actually prime outlets, but there's one that's a non-prime outlet. It's flagship store number 3. And then you've got the prices of your product. So that's actually your product prices over here. So you've got all of this information, right? 3 distinct tables that you have in this particular data. Now, typically, what you do is you'd probably use a VLOOKUP function, right? So if you need to know the square feet of area of a particular store, and let's assume for a quick second, typically data exists in this sort of format wherein you have in one sheet, the store, you have the area, and you have whether it's a prime outlet or not. And then you have another sheet over here. And then so you do a VLOOKUP function, right? So you'd probably say VLOOKUP, and then you would look up the area of the store from the other Excel sheet, right? And so a lot of people do this, right? VLOOKUP's really popular. So there's other ways of doing this, right? Because the reason you do a VLOOKUP is probably to pull the square feet area of the store over here and pull whether it's a prime outlet or not over here. And then finally you use that to generate charts and create dashboards, right? That's the whole idea of doing VLOOKUPs, is to create one data, dictionary or one piece of data that you can use to create your dashboards. But there's another way to do it, okay? And Power Pivot is about, actually, if you look at the Power Pivot tab here, I'm going to click on Power Pivot. It's about, creating databases inside Excel. So while it looks like an Excel file, once you save it, it's actually not exactly an Excel file. It's got a database inside the Excel file. So how do you do that? Well, first up, I'm going to click on this table. So for any of you that are following along with me, okay, again, this assignment also, whenever you have time, you do need to complete this assignment and just mail it across to me. You can actually email the snapshot of the assignment. I'm perfectly fine if you send a JPEG, or you can send me your Excel sheet as well. I'm fine with either one of them. So please do focus here. And I'll do a Control A and Control T and quickly insert tables in all of these. So I'll go ahead and say Control A, Control T. And now I've actually inserted a table here as well. And then my third table here, Control A, Control T, right? There you go. No problems. The data is clean to the best of my knowledge, right? But just to be sure, you could always quickly go to your formulas tab and see if you could just run an error check and see if there's any errors, and there's none in this sheet, so we're perfectly fine. Okay. Now that we know this is clean data and we've been able to convert it into tables, we can now upload this into a data model inside Excel. Okay. So inside the Power Pivot window, right? I'm going to go to the Power Pivot window tab now. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my first table and say Control A a couple of times, go to Power Pivot, and there's a button there that says add to the data model. So it says it creates a link table by adding this particular Excel table to the data model. And the link tables are live link between the table in Excel and the table inside the data model in Power Pivot. All right. So any updates to the table in Excel automatically updates the data that is there in your data model. Okay. So that's kind of like Excel telling you what this is about. And if this table is already in the data model, this action adds a copy to the data model. So every time you add this table to the data model, it will add one more copy of this table to your data model. So let me go ahead and click this button, right? Let me add this table to the data model and let's see what it does. So now it says at the bottom of the screen, if you notice over here, right, it says loading data model. And just like it opened up a separate screen for Power Maps, it's not a part of Excel, so it will open up a separate screen for the Power Pivot as well. Okay. There you go. So what just happened here, right? You'll notice that we're in a completely different screen, right? It doesn't look like Excel anymore. So we're inside the Power Pivot data model. And if you click on the bottom, you'll see that, there's the exercise 7. I can go back to my data view and I can toggle between this and my Power Pivot window over here, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet, but I need more data. I need the, square feet area of each of the flagship stores where the sales are happening. So I'll go and select that whole table and I'll go to Power Pivot and add that to my data model as well. Okay. So it's working now. Okay. So it has added the second table to my data model as well. So finally, I've got a third table where I've got the product and the prices. So I'll say, a Control A for product and prices and go ahead and add that to my data model as well. Now you notice that all of your tables have got imported into the data model inside Power Pivot, right? And you can click on each one individually to make sure that the whole table got imported. So your entire data over here has got imported into the Power Pivot. Okay. Is anyone practicing along with me? I just want to check quickly with people. Let me just see if I can. Okay, yes. So we've got Hari, Abhijit, Subhadrata. Okay, that's great. Okay. Right, people. So now that we've got the three tables in Power Pivot, let's see what we can actually, do with it, right? So there's some tabs on top. There's a home tab. I'm going to click on that. So there's some buttons that appear over here. Okay, and as it turns out, you can actually even pull in data from external data sources into Excel. Okay, so you can import data from a data service. I think that's Microsoft Azure. So over here you've got from an Azure marketplace. So for those of you that don't know what Microsoft Azure is, please don't worry too much. It's a place where you can get data sets. You can also upload data from other data sources. So these are some of the data sources from which you can get data. Again, for those who are not very technical, please don't worry about this. I'm just showing you where you can get your data from. You can get it from Access, Oracle, Sybase, Teradata, IBM DB2, all of the sources, that you could possibly imagine you can connect to, right? Okay. And these are all RDBMSs, right? So you can actually use this button and create your data connections. Okay. And then you'll also see that there's a pivot table option over here. So when you click on it, apparently all of the things that you love in Excel, for example, your pivot tables and charts, you can do that right here inside Power Pivot as well. And then there's something called the data view. So let me show you that over here, right? I think I got the wrong. There you go. I'll go back to home. And this is the data view, okay? And this is what we're in right now, okay? But there's also a diagram view. So let's go ahead and click the diagram view. And the moment I do that, it actually draws a diagram of all of the tables that I have inside this data model, okay? There you go. So you should be able to see all of these tables that I have in this data model, and this is pretty simple, right? But when you have larger data sets, you'll have all the tables drawn out vertically. And there's a lot of things that you can do with this view, but I'll come back to that, very shortly. Okay, and if you go to advanced here, there are some advanced fields over here, right? So we want to be able to actually make some relationships in this data, right? So how do you create relationships? You can click on create relationships and create relationships using this window over here, right? So it says here table 1 and table 2 and table 3. So suppose I know that table 1 has products, and I can see that in table 1. Let me just show it to you here, over here, and I know that table 3 also has products. So it should be possible to connect these two, right? Now you could do that using a VLOOKUP in the old-fashioned way, but there's a much better way of doing it, which I'll show you on your screen right now. So you can click on table 1, and then you can choose product, and then related lookup table, you can click on table 2, and then you can choose product. If it's there, it's not there. So let's click on table 3, and table 3 has product, so I'll click on product. Now I can create this relationship. So I can click the create button. Okay, and the moment I do that, I create a relationship inside the Power Pivot, which is basically a database relationship between the two tables, right? So now when I click on this, it actually shows me visually that there's a relationship between the product field or the product variable in table 1 and the product field or product variable in table number 3. Okay, but it's even easier. It's much easier to do this. You can actually do a drag and drop, right? So let's focus on the store field over here and the store field in table number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this. I'm going to come and drop this over store over here. The moment I do that, I've linked the store in table 1 with the store in table number 2. Now I don't need to do any VLOOKUPs anymore, okay? So I don't even need to see the data. I don't need to look up the data and all of that. This is the end of VLOOKUPs. I'm going to move directly to creating a management dashboard out of this particular data over here. So before I do that, let me just check with the people who are practicing along with me. Have you guys been able to create the relationships in the diagram view, or should I show you that once more? Okay, so Hari and Subhabrata are done. Okay, so Poonam says show us once more. Okay, that's perfectly fine, right? So I'm deleting this particular relationship from the model, so I'll click on the line here. Just give me a second. I think I've got Mac does not have power maps. I will try on Windows later, says Ambuj. Yes, that's perfectly fine, Ambuj. You can practice later. Absolutely. Yes, I understand you meant power pivot. Right. In fact, well, Windows hasn't given Mac a lot of features, so there's a little bit of a tussle between Microsoft and Apple there. Okay, so I'm going to click on the relationship line, and I'm going to press the delete button on my computer, and you can visually delete this from the data model. There you go. And then now I'm going to click on the other relationship that I formed. I'm going to delete that from my model as well. There you go. So now we'll again go back and just show you how to create the relationship. So let me see if I can go to the different views and create the relationship for you. Okay, so in the design view, you have the option to create the relationship. So you all see that on the screen right now. I've clicked on design, and in design there's create relationship. So I click on create relationship, and it gives me this window over here wherein I can select table 1, and then I can select product, and in the second one I can select table 3, and I can select product, and I can say create. The moment I do that, it creates the first relationship between table 1 and table 3, which is basically the product. Okay, and then I could do the same thing without using that interface by just dragging and dropping. So I click store and I keep it pressed down, I keep the mouse pressed down, and I come and drag and drop it over store over here. It's actually working on creating the relationship right now as we speak. So is that clearer, Poonam? Let me just see if I can get the response. Okay, so Poonam says that's clearer now. Perfectly fine. So we've created both of these relationships. This is now a relational database that we've created inside Power Pivot in Excel. So how many rows of data do you think it can handle is my question to everybody, right? So typically if I were to handle data inside Excel Power Pivot, how many rows of data do you think it can handle? So I can give you some options. So let's say around 32,000 rows of data. So let's say 32K. Let's say 32 million rows of data, right? Or let's say 60 million rows of data. And then let's just say, 95 million rows of data. Okay. So if these are your options, what do you think? How much do you think Excel Power Pivot can handle? Come on, so let's guess in the chat box, folks, everybody. I'm looking for guesses from everybody. Okay, there we go. I've got some responses. So 95. Okay, so you guys got it right. Okay, so yep, it can easily handle 95 million rows of data. In fact, it could very easily handle 97 million rows of data as well, right? So that's the whole power of the Power Pivot inside Excel, right? And I think future versions may be able to handle even more. So it's almost reaching a point where you could do work on, big data kind of data inside Power Pivot, right? Exactly. So Satish says, basically it's nothing but the SQL server. So it doesn't tell you that, but it has the SQL server built into it. So right there, Satish. Okay, but this is all okay, but we need to quickly create a management dashboard now, right? So how do we actually go ahead and do that? Now that we've created these relationships, I'm going to go to the home view, not so useful, but maybe the design view or the advanced view. So let's just quickly see. There you go. So I'm going to click on home. Now in home you see pivot table, right? And it gives you a lot of options wherein you can create different charts. Okay, so suppose I want to create a quick management dashboard to understand this particular data. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the 4 charts that you see at the bottom there. So you see the second last option says 4 charts, right? So I'm going to click on that. It's really popular. I'm going to say OK to the new worksheet and wait while it actually draws up the 4 charts for me. There you go. So Excel has prepared 4 charts that it wants me to then populate with some kind of data. Okay. And 4 is a good number, right? So ultimately you don't want to have more than 5 views in any particular dashboard that you create. You take it from me as a rule of thumb that 5 is sort of the maximum. I would actually keep it, less than 5, not greater than 5, right? So the number of views in your data dashboard should be actually less than 5 views. And a lot of people in the leadership sometimes ask for, 6 or 7 views inside one particular dashboard, but that actually can become very confounding for human beings and they get confused by that. So you'd want to keep it to 5 or less than 5. I would say, to my mind, the ideal is 3. Okay, and we'll see that in Tableau, but then it would probably be okay if you go till 4 in one particular dashboard. And that's to improve the comprehensibility of your data. Okay, so now let's click on chart 1. All right, and after clicking on chart 1, over here on the right hand side there's table 1. I'm going to open that up and let's create a dashboard right away. So suppose I want to see the total amount of sales that has happened in each and every state. Simple question, right? So I drag sales out and I drop it on the sum of sales, right? So I say summation of values. So I drag sales and I drop it here on sum of sales. Okay. And then it shows me the total sales right now, but then I want a view, state by state. So I want to add state to the x-axis. So I come in and drop it here on the axis. There you go. Now I get a view of the sales in each of the states, and I can easily tell that Karnataka seems to be doing really well. Okay, and then followed by Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, West Bengal, right? Okay, so far so good. And let me see if I can click on the second chart over here. And now I want to look at the sales. Again, the total of sales, everyone's interested in sales, but I'd like to see how it happens from one city to another city. So let me drag city out here and drop it on the x-axis, right? So there we go. So you get a view of sales per city. But now I'm interested in something a little different, okay? Suppose I want to understand, how is this happening for different products inside these cities? So I could actually create a slicer. So I could right click on this slicer here and I can add a slicer for products to this particular dashboard. So I'm going to do that now, and I've added the slicer to the product. And if I want to see how cables are doing, I can just click on cables and it'll immediately change this chart and show me how cables are doing, right? Or if I want to look at covers, I click on covers and it shows me how covers are doing. So we've practiced this before, and if I click on many of them together, I can actually get a cumulative view of how all of these 3 products are doing in different cities, right? So this we've actually practiced earlier as well. So what's new? Now let's go to chart number 2 over here at the bottom. And this time, suppose again I want to see the sales, but I want to see it in different states and add cities to the legend so that I can see how it's happening in the different cities in each one of the states, right? I notice I've got probably sales happening there in each one of the different cities of the states right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a slicer to this shortly. I'm going to go to chart number 4. Okay, just a second. I think it's just slowed down a little bit. Give me a second here while it comes back up. Okay, so chart number 4, I'm going to say, show me the sales of different products. But now I want to see, the square feet area of the stores where, the sales has happened and the sales of different products as per the square feet area of the store. So you'll notice that the first table does not have square feet area. It has product, store, city, state, and sales. Square feet area is actually in the second table. So it's actually in the second table that says store, area, and prime outlet. And I haven't done a VLOOKUP between these tables, but I've actually done a connection in Power Pivot using the relationships. So we had drawn a connection between store in this table and store in this second table over here. And we had also drawn a connection between products in the first table to products in the third table. So what I'm going to do now is see if I can drag the square feet area and go and drop it on the legend, right? And the moment I do that, I get a view of the square feet area of the store and the product that's being sold, and I can actually zoom in on that a little bit, right? So I can see for each of the different stores in terms of square feet area, which product is achieving how much sales. So that becomes far easier for me to interpret now without a VLOOKUP by just using this dashboard. Now if I go back to this second graph over here, okay, just a second. There we go. I can even add slicers that are from the third table. So let me add a different slicer here, right? Let me just move this a little bit to the left and right, and I can open my third table and I can add a slicer for the product. So if I add the slicer for the product to this table over here, right, like this, I've now created a slightly different dashboard where for this table I have added my products from the third table as a slicer as well. Okay, so you can actually apply a slicer per chart over here. So when you click on one particular chart, you can apply the slicer to that particular chart. So I've added the slicer for cables and covers and gadgets and speakers and widgets over here. So when I click on each one of them, the graph changes as per the particular product that I'm clicking on. So gadgets and slicers. And look, I don't have to do any of the VLOOKUPs. It automatically does it for me, right? Okay. So let me just see if I can adjust some of my charts and the width of some of my charts. Maybe this one over here. And I'm going to adjust that right now. And then you've also got some very good formatting options. Okay. So if you click on one of the charts, for example, the one on the top left, you see a plus sign and a paintbrush appear. And you've got all of these styles that you can use. For example, this style over here, right? Or if I scroll down, this one over here looks quite good. There you go. And let me follow that particular style for all of my charts. So I click on this little paintbrush that appears when I click on the chart. And then on the paintbrush, I select the black background or the dark background. Okay, there you go. Click on the paintbrush again and select my dark background. I'll do so for my fourth table as well. Okay, and the moment I've done that, I've actually created a dashboard with slicers, and it's a relational dashboard. The relationships have been mapped between product and price, between product and stores in all of the different tables in my database. And you can go ahead and take this particular dashboard and go and paste it wherever you want, in PowerPoint or wherever it is that you want to actually keep this data. So let me say PowerPoint. Oops, sorry about that. Opening up PowerPoint now. Right. So this is our very first Power Pivot dashboard. There you go. And I'm going to maximize this now. There you go. So those of you that are practicing, can you please try this at your end and create a dashboard and let me know once you're done. Right, so we've got a couple of questions. Is the drill down option available in Power Pivot, and can we put a single slicer for all the charts? Sure. So I'll answer the questions. In the meanwhile, can everybody just quickly practice this? Those that are practicing, could you please just practice this at your end? Anyone who has practiced this already at their end? Okay. So Hari, is it okay if we look at your computer for a quick second? If I make you the presenter and we just view your computer? Okay, so Akash, it's a good idea to, actually nowadays what people are saying is you can present inside Excel itself. So there's a tool for that called Power View, wherein you can actually make the Excel look like a PowerPoint, right? And you can dynamically make the changes right there in Power View. So I'll talk about that, Akash. I'm happy to do a small extra class for those that are interested in Power View, wherein you can present your data inside Excel, right? And it's far more interactive. So let me see very quickly if I can, go ahead and share the screen for some of you here. Just a second. Hari, yeah. Okay, so Hari, I'm actually going to make you the presenter. Please accept and show us your screen now. You need to accept that, Hari. I've just made you the presenter. There you go. So, thank you so much. Round of applause, everybody, for Hari. And he's actually got his Power Pivot. Anyone else who's also got the, the dashboard going? Anyone else who's got this up already? So this is the whole fun, right? That we practice along with, the class, right? Okay. So I'm going to go back to me being the presenter. Right. So a couple of things that we should try out, on our ends, right? So let's just go back to our Excel sheet. Okay, over here. So let's actually delete the slicers that we had a short while ago. Let's see if I can delete the product slicer there, and I can delete the product slicer here. Okay, and let's try for a quick second and see if we can add the slicer for all the charts together. Okay, so will Excel allow you to do that? So for example, let's say you want to add a slicer for product, right? So over here, so can you select more than one chart and then add a slicer is the whole point. So the moment you select more than one chart, it actually is not allowing you to add that slicer, right? But the moment you select just one chart over here, it again shows you the view pivot chart tools and you are able to add your slicer. But in Tableau, you can actually do it for multiple views. You can have the slicer. Over here, it does not seem to be behaving, right? The moment you say and you go to the option to see if you can draw, it does not seem to be allowing you to do that, right? Sure. So give it a shot at your end, and I'd love to share your screen, Akash, right? So and then the drill down option is the other thing, right? So if you look at it over here, just give me a second. So when you look at the legend, right, suppose to this third chart here, second chart here, top right corner. Suppose you add prime and non-prime outlet, right? And you drop it on the legend. Okay, and then you have this drill down here. So you could click on that drill down and it will give you this option here, right? Non-prime and prime, yes and no. So if I was looking at just, let's say, prime outlets, okay, there's only one prime outlet, by the way, so I could click on OK and it shows you what's going on there. Or if I click on just the non-prime outlets, I could click on that. So you have that drill down capability there, right? Okay, so it's right there on the chart. That's right. That's right. It's on the charts right there. And then over here in square feet area also, if you click, you've got the option on the chart itself, right? Okay. Great. So who else has practiced this? So apart from Hari, right? Anyone else who's had a chance to practice this? Okay. Okay, so Subhabrata's got a question on how I actually exported this to PowerPoint. So not much, I just click on all of the charts, I press the control button down and click on all of the charts after pressing down the control button, and then you can copy it and you can go and paste it into your PowerPoint. I stuck on third chart. Okay, so Poonam is stuck on the third chart. Let me just quickly go over to Poonam's computer. So Poonam, I'll make you the presenter. Can you please accept and say show my screen? So Poonam, can you click on show my screen, please? I've made you the presenter. Okay, seems to be some challenge there with Poonam at her end. Just a second, I'm going to make myself the presenter again. Okay. Yeah, so you can copy it by clicking on the chart and press the control button down and click on all of the charts and go ahead and copy your charts, right? You can even use the control C button if you want, or you can right click and then click copy, or you can click the control C button. Okay, and then you can create your new slide and paste it in the slide, right? So that's how I had done that. And a lot of people now actually prefer to present inside Excel because they can actually use the slicers and show the leadership different cuts of data. So, to Akash's point, right, a lot of times there are questions that come up and it's really useful if you can drill down and answer those questions right there, right? So you can use the destination theme or keep the source formatting, or you can paste it as an image as well, okay? It doesn't seem to be giving us the option to embed it inside the Excel sheet. There you go. Right? So that's how we've done that. Okay. So anyone except Hari who has also practiced the Power Pivot? So let me see if I can unmute Poonam and see what challenge she's facing. So Poonam, I think you're stuck at the third chart, you're saying, right? The fourth chart is not working for you. Is that how it is? Okay. And while Poonam responds, I think Subhabrata is done. So Subhabrata, I'll share your screen now with the group. Just say, show my screen. So you need to click show screen and then we'll be able to see your screen, Subhabrata. Okay, great. There we go. Right. And anyone who's practiced the power maps that they'd like to share with the group? Thank you so much, Subhabrata. I'm going to make myself the presenter again. Sorry about the noise. I'm going to mute everyone. Okay. Right. So has anyone practiced power maps? Anyone who had the power maps going and has practiced the power maps? I'd love to see your screens. Okay. Okay, got it. So I think no one has practiced the power maps right here live, but if I would love to see that as well, because that is also very, very important. So folks, I'm going to close this particular sheet, and again, hopefully by now all of you have got a sense of how powerful Power Pivot and Power Maps can be. And there's one exercise that we had actually missed last time, which I want to take you through now. So let me see if I can hand out this file. Just give me a second here. Okay, there we go. There's a file that I've just uploaded called pivot gaps. Can everyone please download that file, pivot gaps? All right, so I think some of you are done. Let me also open it at my end. Can everyone please confirm when you opened the file pivot gaps? It's exercise 5. Okay, for some reason, just give me a second here. There we go. Okay, it seems to be opened for most of us. And let me open it up in my end as well. Okay, there you go. So, a lot of the times, what happens is you create a pivot, right? And we had missed this exercise last time, so I thought I'd take everyone through it now. So a lot of times when you create the pivot, you end up with a view like this, okay? So this is basically a pivot that got created, right, out of some data. It doesn't matter what data was used to create this pivot, but you end up with this kind of view, okay? The whole point is, how do you move from this view and copy this particular data into a different sheet? So what a lot of people do is, they say Control A and they copy this data, Control C, and then they go ahead and paste it into some other sheet like this, right? So they come to some other sheet and they right click and they paste values. So you open a new sheet, you right click and you do paste values, maybe like this, right? And then you end up with this data like so. Now the big question is that how are you going to actually add the missing data? So you've got some missing data here, 2010 onwards, right? How are you going to add that data? And before we do that, I think we realize that there's some errors. So 2012 is probably numbers stored as text, and so is 2011 and 2010. And we had learned how to do this. You just click on 2012 and you say Control A a couple of times, 2 times Control A, and you can fix this error for the whole sheet by converting it to number. So that solves that problem. But then the whole thing is, how do you fill up all of this missing data, right? Any ideas on this? How do I fill this up? So I mean, the best way to do it, I could just say 2010, and typically this is how we work, right? And then you manually actually pull this data all the way down, and then over here maybe 2011, right? This is how we do it, right? Okay. But the whole point is, what's the point of having Excel if we have to do all this work in this way? And I found a lot of people doing this, right? They need to populate the entire data, so this is how they go about it. And then now they're going to do it for June. So they're going to type out actually June. Some people feel that it's perfectly fine. I'll just do Control C and I'll keep doing a Control V. So they do that, right? This is how you do it. So is there any better way to achieve this is my question. Okay, so autofill is one point, so Hari talks about autofill. Absolutely. So, we did use autofill to the extent that we, clicked on 2010 and then populated it. But the whole point is, for example, is there a better way to do it than use even autofill, right? See, whenever you're in Excel and you're wondering how to do something and you're trying to do it in a less than efficient way, and you want to know what is a better way of doing this, right? You want to think about maybe right clicking. So let's try and right click and let's see if we can expand or collapse something. Let's collapse, but that didn't help, so Control Z, or probably use the minus sign there, but that didn't help too much either. All right. So it looks like there's no local way to solve this particular problem, right? But let me just check with a few people if anyone knows how this could be done in a better way, right? So Manmeet, anyone? Arvind, Dimple, anybody else? Right? Okay. So absolutely. So Akash, has got the absolutely correct answer. So hey, thanks Akash. Looks like you do this quite a bit. I'm aware. So field settings, layout, and print says Arvind Singhi. Okay. So look, for the rest of us, right? You might want to look at the options. So if you go to pivot table on top, and you go to design, right? You'll find that there's a lot of options there in the table. Of course, you could change the color of the table and all of that, but you could also go here to report layout and change the layout of your pivot report and include all the item labels. So it says repeat all item labels. And the moment you click on that, you'll find it populates this data for you automatically. You do not need to make this effort. So the whole point is, right, and it's a joke, I mean, don't take it seriously, but the idea is that we have purchased Excel and it's not Excel that has purchased us, right? So you want to be really efficient about how you do things in Excel. And the moment you find yourself doing something that is not efficient, you want to think about why it is that is happening, right? And there you go. So we've pasted this, and all of these errors we know we can fix one shot by doing a Control A 2 times and converting it to a number, or writing it as a text, and you can create your independent table on this data over here, right? All right, so there you go. Can everyone practice this at your end? Can you go to design and then go to report layout, click on repeat all item labels and say done? Okay, Subhabrata is done. Okay, I know all of you are practicing this. I'm just going to wait a little bit more before we move ahead. Subhabrata, Arvind, Ambuj are all done. Of course, Akash was aware of it, so right, so Hari is also done. Okay, fantastic. Great, so thanks everyone for practicing along and making the most of this. And let me see if I can now go back to our presentation, right, and see if there's anything that we've missed here. So, all right, thanks a lot, Manmeet, as well. Okay, so again, coming back to our presentation, we learned a lot of things, today. It's good to have tabular data, but it makes sense to have a geographical view if you have geospatial variables. It really helps to have tables. We've learned that. We've talked about flash fill, and we learned to be efficient, and we just saw an example of that in terms of how we can repeat all item labels. and we've all talked about copying a formula, horror stories of Excel. And then we also practiced a few additional things here today. So let me move on. Yes, this slide is important. So these are all of the different, BI tools, and we spent a lot of time practicing the specific BI tools today that we learned of are actually Power Map and Power Pivot. But some of the questions that you asked, right? So Power View, right? So Akash asked the question, can we embed everything inside a presentation? So the whole view is changing, right? The thought is that you can use Power View to actually represent your data inside Excel. And once the course is over, I'm happy to do a quick, 30-minute, class on Power View and Power Query. They're not long enough to have a full class, but we can probably combine them both into a 1-hour class, right? So would that be useful, Akash, if we do a special class for those that are interested on Power View and Power Query? Manmeet, how about you? I think some of the folks, see, we want to make sure that it's relevant to everyone. So yeah, so Hari, Manmeet, Akash, Swami, I mean, anyone who wants an extra class, I think towards the end I will do a 1-hour class on both the other tools as well. Okay, so Swami is also interested. Arbind says it's beneficial. Okay, so it looks like it's beneficial. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick introduction to both of these as well, Power View and Power Query, right? So that we know what it is about. Okay, so I think everyone is interested. I'll drop the invite to all of you, and I think it will be post the last class of the course, but we'll make sure that we cover Power View and Power Query as well in the program. Okay. All right. So let me now very quickly see if there's anything else for the day. I think we can otherwise break for the day. And next time we're going to, pick up, for half the class, we'll just pick up a few Excel functions that are very useful to know, and that won't take a lot of time. But then we will transition into visual analytics and Tableau and actually start learning Tableau. So in the next class onwards, probably I'll let you know how to download Tableau as well. So we'll kick off by running some of the important functions in Excel for maybe around 30 to 45 minutes, and then jump straight into visual analytics presentation, and finally end with the Tableau, and we will have 2 classes at least for Tableau. And by the second class, we'll create dashboards as well as create a story point inside Tableau. In the first class, we'll get to learn about the Tableau interface, how the interface actually works, and do all of that. So I will let everybody know in advance of what all you require for the next class. And before that, before we break up for the day, I wanted to show you a couple of important things, right? So just give me a second here while I pull them up. Okay. So I wanted to show everybody the Learner Central page, and see, this is the only link you need to have, right? So I would call it the one link you should save as a favorite in your browser, right? So if you can save this link as a favorite in your browser, it will be very useful, because every Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. you will have a class, right? And that's the standard timing that you need to just keep in your mind, 7 p.m. IST. And all you need to do is go to this link and you'll be able to access everything you need. So at this link, you have view video for the past classes. For example, yesterday the class was conducted on basic statistics for analytics. So you can click on view video, right? And that will take you to the YouTube page where you can actually watch the class. And that's happening now. There you go. And it's starting out the class. At the same time, if you want to access the materials that were used yesterday, you can click on materials, all materials, and it'll open up the link where you can actually download your materials, which should include the presentation on statistics, right? So let's just wait for this to open up. Okay, so it'll include the presentation that you had right there. So it says statistics introduction, and that's your presentation, right? So similarly, any class in the future, you only need to go to this page and simply click the join class button. So over here, you'll see join class enabled for one of the classes, which is the next class. And the moment you click on that, it will take you to the webinar and you can join the class. So let me click on this button here. And I'm repeating this because I get a lot of calls before the classes saying we have not received the email or other things. Well, all you need to do is, just go here. We send you WhatsApp alerts, and you need to make sure you just go to the Learner Central page and join the class. That's it. And this needs to continue right going forward. So is the 6th August statistics class postponed to some other day? Yeah. Okay. So there will be a small shift in the classes. Right now you see 6th and 7th class statistics. We'll actually, flip that. So we'll renew this page and you'll see the, the new version tomorrow morning. So by tomorrow morning, you'll see that one of it will be an advanced statistics class. The other one will be actually either critical thinking, decision making, or it will be visual analytics, one of those two things, right? So please keep visiting that page. Now, right now what I need is if you can please watch the statistics class that happened yesterday once more, because it's really important for your next class, right, that you watch the statistics class. And if you can practice everything that happened in today's class, I would really want to see your 3D power maps and your management dashboard. You can take snapshots and mail it to me, or you can mail the actual files to me. Okay? Great. So I think that's great. We're going to stop here for the day. Thanks everyone for attending the class, and see you next week, right? As we practice more and more interesting things, we're going to get deeper into a lot of things next week, right? Okay. All right. Good night, Satish. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Poonam. Thanks, Hari. Thanks, Abhijit. Thanks, Akash. Swami. Thanks. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Ambuj. Sumit. Ben, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm going to end the webinar now. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Manmeet.